It was Valentine's Day, and I still didn't have anything to give her. It didn't really matter, though, because we took the love languages test and she got words of affirmation and quality time. All I had to do to make her happy was be near her. If we were holding each other, even if we were in the same room at the same time, she was happy. We both were. You see, there were 4 months at the start of the relationship when we couldn't see each other. We were separated by both proximity and time difference. This made things difficult. To make those times easier, we would write to each other. I would send letters, but she would send packages. Nothing too big. They were usually little stuffed animals, the ones with the keychains on the top that have big corny eyes with hot pink sparkles around the pupils. They weren't really my style, but they were hers, so I liked them because they reminded me of her. And when you love someone, you learn to love even the things you kinda hate. So for Valentine's Day, I bought her some chocolates and wrote a handwritten note. It wasn't fancy or anything, just a few meaningful sentences scribbled in pencil. You could still see the eraser marks from the spelling errors I'd corrected. But those little flaws were beautiful, and she appreciated those things even to this day after our pen pal days were over. She came to my apartment later that day and we exchanged gifts. She smiled and teared up as she folded the note I'd written and kissed me on the cheek. She then presented me with her gift. I could have guessed it was going to be another cute animal keychain.
Just like we used to do.
She smiled at me. They are so stupid, but I've always loved them. They kinda always made me feel closer to you, I responded as I nodded over to the ones on my dresser. 2 of them were perched next to my jewelry box. One of them was on my nightstand. One was dangling on the mirror in my car, and I was now putting the last one on my backpack. I got one every month we were apart. They were definitely a strange toy for a 21-year-old to have strewn around her life, but anything to make the long distance hurt a little less.
They made me feel closer to you too.
She put her hand on my cheek and teared up again. She was always so emotional. I liked it though. I was always the tough one. We carried on with the evening. We watched a few rom-coms in my bed and cuddled until we fell asleep. The next morning she went to her classes and I went to mine. The next few weeks were pretty hectic with exams and projects consuming the majority of both of her time. We could really only text for a while, but we were okay with that. After all, I had my stupid keychain animals to help me get through it. The way my college was set up, there were a few different campuses, and I had classes in 2 of them. They were far enough apart that I had to drive to get from one to the other. Either that or take the bus. But as a senior, I was far too cool to even step foot onto that thing with all those freshmen. So it was worth the gas money, and I enjoyed my music and privacy. The hard weeks passed, and we were reunited. She nailed her presentations, and I passed my exams with flying colors, so we got dinner to celebrate. We went to a seafood restaurant at which we were regulars at this point. We were reading the menu as if we were unaware of only the 7 items listed. I ordered my usual, and she ordered hers. We debriefed about the last few weeks and caught up. We always caught up like this. It was nice, and it made me feel like we were actually together the whole time. There was this one time when a bunch of us had this place cater a philanthropy event, and Jake got these nasty hives, and I had to, rush him to the ER. My car had almost no gas in it, so it was stressful and scary, but also kind of funny in retrospect. I smiled as I thought about it.
I mean, I'd argue it was hilarious if he was crying in the car like a small child. Like, it was just a rash. You are going to survive, Jake.
Oh yeah, I forgot he was sobbing the whole way. I totally forgot about that part. How did you remember that and not me?
You just told me about it once,
she quickly responded.
I'm the one with a good memory, remember? Oh, wait, of course you don't.
She smiled. Oh my God, shut up! I giggled. We like to flirt with mild insults. I still felt like it was a little weird that she knew that minor detail. That story was from a couple of months ago, so I honestly don't remember if I told her about it or not. There was a brief time when we started dating when she was awfully suspicious of me. I didn't think she had any reason to be, but she was insecure because I was flirty and would talk to other girls. I never did anything, though. I wouldn't. My brother cheated on his wife and the whole family suffered from it, so I swore to myself I would never be like him. During that brief time when we started dating and she was awfully suspicious, she went through my phone. I knew I had nothing to hide, so it didn't really bother me that she did what she did. I was mostly just upset that she didn't trust me. But she agreed that she was being a little obsessive and we made our amends. There was only one time since then that I caught her snooping around on my phone. To me, that wasn't enough to break up over. So I guess it is hypothetically possible that she read about that story on my phone. I'm in a group text with my friends and we used to reminisce about that kind of stuff all the time. Dinner was over and we went home. Things got a little hot and heavy before we settled down yet again and watched a movie together before falling asleep in each other's arms. We woke up and continued on our collegiate grind as we juggled social life and academia. We hung out with friends, went to classes, spent some nights together and some nights apart. Summer came and passed, and we were back at school. We were both in bad relationships prior to this one. There were a lot of issues in mine, but the biggest problem in hers was the clinginess. She was virtually inseparable from the girl that she was with, and it resulted in the relationship's inevitable demise. You just can't be with someone 24/7 if you want it to be a healthy relationship. When we first started talking, we had this deep conversation about our biggest flaws, and after revealing mine, she opened up about hers. Naturally, the clingy thing came up and we talked it out. She told me that she's the type of person who wants to be self-aware and fix the problems that she knows she has. I thought that was really inspiring. Our relationship definitely felt far stronger than anything either of us had previously known. We were going strong, and another Valentine's Day approached. We decided to make the stupid animal keychains into an annual thing because we were both suckers for tradition and reminiscing. I had to think of a fun new place to put this one, though, because I didn't want people to be creeped out by my large pupil animal keychain collection around my room. That was to be determined. This Valentine's Day, we decided to blast music throughout my apartment and get super drunk. We danced and sang into hairbrushes like we were in some cheesy movie. I hate to admit how fun it was. I slipped away to my bedroom for a moment and changed my shirt. I spilled on it quite a bit. I pulled open a drawer, and a snow globe from my dresser smashed down onto my foot. It hurt a lot, but I was drunk, so I didn't really care. I didn't even make a sound. Plus, I was wearing socks, so you couldn't really tell anything happened to it or anything like that. I went back into the living room. We ran around laughing and falling onto things. I tripped at one point and banged my head on a counter, I think. Again, we were pretty drunk, and I don't fully remember. But we plopped down on the couch, and she got 2 little bags of ice.
One for your head and one for your foot.
My foot? Why? I was drunk and laughing for no reason. My foot is fine.
Your foot is hurt.
She pulled off the sock, revealing the gnarly bruise, and placed the ice on my foot. She always cared for me. That was another thing I loved about her. She must have had a 6th sense or something, because I definitely wasn't limping. I like that she knew when I needed something, though. We fell asleep later in the night and woke up in the next morning. Life continued as usual. We gave each other space, and then we reunited. I felt like this always gave us more to talk about. I got to tell her all the nonsensical things that I wanted to, and she would just sit there and smile and listen. She was such a good listener. I guess there is some validity to the whole distance makes the heart grow fonder thing. I really didn't spend that much time with her, but I felt like she knew me better than anyone else. She always knew what to say or what I wanted or how to make me feel better. Sometimes I felt like she knew me more than I knew myself. I was in love with her. We usually went over to my apartment to hang out, but this time I asked to go to hers. I liked exploring other people's houses. Ever since I was little, I loved seeing the way that other people lived. I used to creep around and peek into rooms and act like I was exploring some kind of abandoned, creepy mansion. I grew out of this mostly, but part of me still likes snooping. I'd been to her apartment before, but I'd never really snooped. She went out to run a few errands, and I stayed back because I wanted to take a nap. But I was restless, so I got up and took a look around instead. I also kinda had a little work to do, so what better way to find a good workplace than to look for one? I put my backpack on and started exploring with a valid excuse to do so. The kitchen was average and not great. This was because there were minimal snacks. She was pretty healthy, which was upsetting in times like these. I needed sugar, or carbs, or salt, or all three. I continued to walk through the apartment and realized there was really only so much to discover. She had no roommates, no long corridors, no attic, but she did have what I assumed to be a closet at the end of the hall. I started messing with the doorknob, but it didn't budge. She'd invaded my privacy with the whole phone thing before, so I felt no shame or guilt in overstepping a bit. The key to this mystery door wasn't hard to find. She was smart, but she wasn't too creative. She left the key in a bowl of potpourri. My mom used to do this in my house growing up with all these random keys in one place. I smiled to myself. I was a real detective. I opened the door and found what looked like some sort of security system. I put my backpack on the floor and crept closer to get a better look. I knew about this software. I knew that most people had cameras linked to their phones, but I guess it linked to computers too. Maybe both at the same time? I was no expert. There were 2 computer monitors, but only one of them had camera footage on it. The other one had nothing on it yet, but there were empty sections that I'm assuming could link to more cameras. My attention was drawn to the monitor, but had live footage. There were 6 different camera views. I recognized the images they displayed. One of the screens showed the back of a girl who was standing in a room that looked like the one I was in. And the girl looked like me. My stomach dropped. I turned around and saw my backpack with the stupid little animal keychain. And I looked into its eyes.